What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave. So yesterday, we had that PlayStation 5 event, and it was something. It told us a lot of good information. It is just really, for a lot of people, pretty boring. I mean, let's be honest. It was definitely an event that would not have been streamed if GDC had happened. I feel like that would have been just something they would have done behind closed doors, and then we would have had some fact sheets come out afterwards. But they still streamed it. Mark Cerny was very, very calm, eerily calm the entire way through, to the point where I'm sure people were falling asleep. It felt kind of like a lecture. Maybe they, like, I don't know, set off some fireworks or do something crazy like show a game. But we'll go over some of the information that we learned there. And then also we did have another piece of news that was kind of lost in the PS5 madness, we'll say. And that has to do with a game that was rated pretty recently, pointing to more hints of, yes, a Nintendo Direct coming soonish. As always, guys, if you enjoy these videos, make sure you hit that like button, helps out a ton. If you're brand new here, hit that red subscribe button down below. And we are going to start today with some value, especially if you're stuck inside looking for something to do. Now, of course, there are demos out right now with RE3 and Trials of Mana, and then games will be out tomorrow, Animal Crossing and Doom, grabbing both of them. But let's say you're not interested in any of that. Well, there's a good chance you might be interested in one of these games. This is on Humble Bundle, where Capcom is actually putting out a pretty good package there of several games. $20 seems to get you everything, and that includes the X Legacy Collection, just regular Mega Man Legacy Collection. They have Dead Rising 4, they have Devil May Cry 4, they also have Street Fighter, Dragon's Dogma, and the list goes on for the most part. Resident Evil Revelations is on there, Resident Evil 0 Remastered, the HD, Resident Evil Revelations 2, Strider. It's a pretty good package there, and Humble Bundle will let you decide where the money goes for charities and publishers and developers, but I mean, it's hard to beat these packages when they come up. You just have to be able to make sure you realize they are actually happening, and there you go. Capcom is up now, and $20 will get you quite a bit. Oh, and also, this was really funny. After the PlayStation 5 event that happened, we found out some information about how powerful the system is. Became obvious that the Series X is more powerful, so Microsoft had a whole page ready to go, which tells me that they already knew that they were more powerful. They had a page talked about the most powerful system as a Series X, but then at the bottom, it mentioned that it was coming Thanksgiving 2020. Now, this was in certain regions, and it seems strange to us because why would you launch a system on Thanksgiving? But Larry Herb quickly took to Twitter, put this out here saying, an Xbox product page in some regions accurately listed the launch date for the Xbox Series X as Thanksgiving 2020. We are committed to launching holiday 2020. That makes more sense, considering most of us are probably expecting the Series X to come out first half of November, right? That makes the most sense, I think. First half of November, give you any chance at all to stock up again after the initial sellout day one before Christmas happens. And you wouldn't launch on Thanksgiving. At least give yourself 10 to 12 days before Thanksgiving and the Black Friday madness takes place. But yes, if you hear anything about that, seems like it was just a mistake, and that makes sense that they wouldn't launch on Thanksgiving. Also, if you are a Game Pass subscriber, some new games are coming starting today, and there's some pretty good ones again. Game Pass has been on the ball recently, haven't they? There have been some good games out, and it looks like, once again, this new update are some pretty big ones that you probably missed out on, and I'm going to show you one that you absolutely have to grab. So let's jump over here for, these are for console games, and then they also have some PC games as well that you can check out. But let's go over to the console games here, starting March 19th, that being today, Ace Combat 7 Skies Unknown, right there at the top. That is the one you want to grab. Love that game quite a bit. Awesome game. Then we have Kona, then we have The Surge 2, which is one I have not checked out. Unfortunately, right now, I am quite busy with several games, and then tomorrow it's not going to get any lighter, so I may have to wait on The Surge 2, but that is one I wanted to check out. March 24th, we will have Bleeding Edge, and then March 26th, we'll have Power Rangers Battle for the Grid. So once again, pretty good update here for Game Pass. Check out Ace Combat, though. I like that one a lot, and it's there, so why not? I'm going to kind of do the same thing myself just for The Surge 2, because I want to check that one out. My problem is I'm already buried in Trials of Mana demo, about to start up Resident Evil 3 demo to get that done today, and then tomorrow, Animal Crossing and Doom taking over my weekend, and then Animal Crossing taking over the rest of this year for a lot of us. But yeah, pretty packed time for gaming now. And guys, with some of the quick news out of the way, let's get into the bigger stuff. We're gonna have a couple sections here for the PlayStation 5, dividing some of it up, because there was confusion, there was frustration, there was excitement, it was all over the place, but we're gonna break it down here, and we have a spec sheet. We're gonna move kind of quickly because there's a lot to go over here. So let's start with the spec sheet here next to the Xbox Series X so we can kind of compare it and put it into perspective a bit. Now, they are both using RDNA 2 from AMD, which should not shock you. That is something that we've heard from both of them before any of this press stuff happened over the last 7 to 10 days. We've known about ray tracing for both as well. Nothing shocking there. So let's go over it from the top here. On the PlayStation 5, we have 8 Zen 2 cores at 3.5 gigahertz. Now, on the GPU side, it is coming out to 10.28 teraflops. Now, keep in mind, the teraflop number is done through kind of just a written equation, and that comes from 36 compute units at 2.23 gigahertz. They are variable frequency, and Mark Cerny explained that it's actually happening a bit differently than we've been used to. In this instance, the amount of power provided will be pretty much the same, and then the frequency will alter depending on the workload. What this will allow them to do is something that I got pretty happy with when he did explain this, because he's been saying what I've been saying this whole time, which is that the PlayStation 4 Pro was not built to handle the amount of heat that was going through it, and that's why you get that jet engine-like noise from it when you do anything. Okay, I don't want to say anything, but he used the instance of God of War, and yes, that's a good one. Horizon Zero Dawn's another good one, where when it gets too crazy or it's doing a lot, you hear that fan get a little crazy on you, right? And that's just because it can't account for the amount of power going through as that turns to heat and they try to dissipate it. This way, they will have accounted for it completely. Their estimates for the amount of cooling that they will need will be much more on the money than it's ever been. So that's actually pretty cool. The downside, of course, is that the frequency will change, which means that 10.28 teraflop number is kind of the roof along with that frequency, and there are times where it will be lower than that, in essence, weaker. But the idea is that it wouldn't need that power anyway for what it's doing. And this is much different than the Series X, which is pretty much going to be sustained. So we hear like 3.8 gigahertz, for example, on the CPU side, just over 1.8 gigahertz on the GPU side. That will just be sustained straight up. Now, the PS5 GPU should be smaller, has less compute units and all of that, so it'll be interesting to see how these all compare. One running more compute units at a lower frequency, and the other running less compute units at a higher frequency, which the PS5 will be weaker, but will we notice it? That is the big question, and third-party games will give us our best idea of that as they will scale between them. So of course we hear now, oh, the PS4 Pro is a lower resolution than the Xbox One X, for example, or frame rates are different. We'll see how much they vary when we get to the games. Now, moving on to memory, we know that they're both using GDDR6 at this point, with the PlayStation 5 using one pool of memory there at 16 gigabytes GDDR6 with a memory bandwidth of 448 gigabytes per second. That is different from the Series X, which decided to divide up its RAM. So 10 gigabytes is actually faster than the PS5's RAM, but then they have 6 gigabytes that is slower. And again, that'll be something interesting to see how developers take advantage of that one. The idea being that the 6 gigabytes won't necessarily be needed for games, essentially, and they can use that for OS level operations or even audio, as they have explained. Now, we're about to talk about the SSD in the next section, but I have to say, looking at this, yeah, the Series X is just a more powerful system. It's not really surprising to me to hear that, as Microsoft themselves, they said that the engineers there had to design the system to be a tower because they were going for a more powerful system overall. And I did not think that Sony would do that. I think Sony's gonna put out the system and it's gonna look like a standard rectangular type box. Maybe it has a different angle to it or something. It's not gonna be a tower. And to be honest, I kind of think that's why it's clocked and set up the way that it is, because they didn't want to build a PC tower for everyone. It's Sony. They want to make a box that kind of goes along with everything else that they do with their TVs and sound systems and all of this. So yeah, that's kind of where I'm sitting at. And they'll both be very capable, but got to give it to Microsoft. They designed the more powerful system. Okay, now let's move over in this next section to the PlayStation 5's biggest advantage by far, and that has to do with the SSD on board. It is significantly faster than the Series X. And will that provide any advantage? I would like to say that, yeah, probably will. With third-party games, not as much, because of course they will be pretty much tied to what the Series X has in it. And while the PlayStation 5 will push games and load games faster and worlds faster and all this, it won't be accounted for specifically. So that's gonna fall to the first parties. And what they'll be able to take advantage of is an SSD on board with a lot, and I mean a lot, of custom hardware built around it to attain these speeds of 5.5 gigabytes per second. That is fast. That is really fast. And if you consider the idea that they say that with their compression techniques, they can get it to 8 to 9 gigabytes per second, it gets absolutely insane. That's really fast. If you have an NVMe drive now that's top of the line, kind of 3.5 gigabytes is probably where you're sitting right now. So to think about 5.5 or 8 to 9 compressed, that's pretty good. In fact, right now, with expandable storage that they will allow you to do, a drive doesn't exist on the market right now that we can buy that would be up to the speeds that the PlayStation 5 does need right now. So don't go out buying an M.2 NVMe drive right now, because we'll just have to wait to see what's certified. That's one of the weirdest things about this, by the way. Microsoft decided to partner with Seagate to design basically their own like memory cards almost. Like there's little USB looking things that plug in that are technically little SSD drives, NVMe drives, but Sony is allowing you to choose ones off the shelf that they have certified that we're waiting to come out later on this year, we're hoping. There's a chance they don't even get out this year with all the stuff going on in the world right now, and that is going to be interesting that we have to figure it out ourselves. I guess the good news is a lot of us are probably going to be playing around with the idea and figuring out what the best one is to buy, so I guess keep an eye out on your favorite channels that like to go over those things. It's just interesting they wouldn't want to have more control, but maybe the whole Vita thing scared them off, I don't know. So what can we expect from a super fast SSD on the PlayStation 5 that what seems to be most of the system is designed to take advantage of? Well, you'll probably cut out loading times. In fact, Mark Cerny specifically said, we're gonna try to get rid of load times completely. I like the sound of that. I like the sound of just hitting a button and boom, you're in the game, and that's that, right? Whereas, let's be honest, now we put a game in, if it doesn't even have to install the game or do a patch, you're gonna be waiting for a while, right? And that's just the way it is, because we're dealing with very, very slow hard drives in these systems. It's so bad that some of your USB 3 hard drives might be faster through USB 3 on like your Xbox One or even your PS4 than the hard drive in the system. That's crazy to me, right? That USB would be faster with an external drive. So to have an SSD like this is great for load times. Mark Cerny went through a ton of scenarios where it would come into play and make things better, whether it's textures loading in faster as you turn so that the entire world appears to be drawn out at all times, so no texture pop in, of course, worlds overall loading faster, data even being technically more efficient, I would say, as you wouldn't need all the duplicate files and mailboxes, for example, as he says, with Spider-Man being duplicated over 400 times or something crazy, and even more unique and crazier looking worlds, we'll say, as you won't see the same rock or all this stuff all over the place. It sounds like a lot of this is geared towards games that want to have a more unique open world, and I like that idea. He also mentioned very briefly that the SSD would be fast enough to cache and even use at times in place of system RAM. So interesting there. We'll see. He even put out a call and said, now I'm curious what you guys are going to do with this, the developers, because we've put the pieces in place here with this very, very fast SSD. And honestly, I'm excited now to see what kind of, the biggest jump, I think, is going to be the speeds with going from these mechanical drives to the SSD. I know Sony is building that up and saying, oh yeah, 10.28 teraflops, but look at this SSD. I do think solid state storage overall with the Series X and the PS5 might honestly be the biggest like we're gonna look back on the PS4 and the Xbox One and just, we won't be able to figure out how we sat through those load times at like 3 or 4 years from now when we go back to look at it, because it'll be sad. Also, they did talk a bit about 3D audio, their Tempest engine, and it sounds great, no pun intended, but like, it's something we're gonna have to experience for ourselves. I kind of compare it to VR or even the 3D that came out with the 3DS, you know, back in like, what, 2010 or so? It was cool to tell people about it, but they had to see it, or in this case, they have to hear it. The idea is it'll take advantage of your headphones, of course, but also your speakers on your regular TV to give you, if you're in the sweet spot, kind of an effect of surround sound, essentially, but even better than that, more precise. So if something's happening to your left, it sounds like it's actually happening to your left. And for some reason, he decided to get us all excited by showing us a Dead Space screenshot, and then moved on with the presentation like nothing happened. It's like, yeah, you just showed us Dead Space, and now you're already on to other charts. What's going on here? And the last bit of information from this this little keynote that they had that I wanted to touch on was the backwards compatibility aspect. It's like non-existent. This is very, very strange, by the way. I hope there's more to this that they want to have a grand reveal for, because this is looking kind of bad on Sony's part. Let's just be honest here, because they showed the slide, and I was like, okay, there's the PS4 Pro, there's the PS4, and there's a space below it. Are we about to see PS3, PS1? Nope, we're moving on. Okay, great. The weirdest part here is that it sounds like not all PS4 games are going to be backwards compatible from the start. Here is what Mark Cerny said, and this was transcribed by Push Square. We recently took a look at the top 100 PS4 titles as ranked by playtime, and we're expecting almost all of them to be playable at launch on the PS5. With more than 4,000 games published on PS4, we will continue the testing process and expand backwards compatibility coverage over time. That is so strange because Mark Cerny himself almost bragged that, oh, AMD was serious about backwards compatibility. They were on it. And I thought at that point they were going to say 100% backwards compatible, no sweat. He does say they're testing it. Almost like, okay, maybe that weird game you really like that no one else does, maybe that'll work, but we haven't tested it yet. They say the top 100 games, great. GTA 5 will live on to another system. Awesome. But like seeing God of War, of course, sure, I'm sure it's in there. Horizon Zero Dawn, absolutely. Gran Turismo, Uncharted, like all of the games that most of us have played are probably tested and going to be ready to go. But it is weird that they almost seem like they're not quite ready for the launch. It's an odd thing to see, almost like they just weren't as prepared as Microsoft. Microsoft's going to be backwards compatible to the original Xbox with a lot of games. Again, not all of them. And this seems like the rollout that Microsoft has had with 360 games. But they've been doing that for a while now. It's like Sony's just now getting on the ball with this. It's weird. They need to clarify that a bit better, and I hope they have a bit more information about backwards compatibility that extends beyond the PS4, but right now it's not looking good. But all in all, I liked what I saw with the PS5, even though people were pretty disappointed in it. I kind of figured it wasn't going to be as powerful as the Series X. The biggest thing now it comes down to is that price point. That's the biggest thing. If both of these systems cost the same amount, that's going to be interesting. The strange thing I also noticed before we wrap up here with the PS5 news was that Mark Cerny did at one point kind of mention that they were being cost conscious with some of this stuff, especially when he revealed that it would be 825 gigabytes of onboard storage in the PS5. That is an odd number, almost like they're running up against a price that they have in mind. We heard from Bloomberg that they were struggling to get to $450. I really think Sony wants this thing to be $400. I don't know if they're going to be able to make it happen. But if they really are stuck at 825 gigabytes and it's not a full terabyte, that's going to look weird on the outside of the box, first of all. 825, what? Yeah, to me, that cut has to be in place for a $400 price point, because if these are both $500, they better have some awesome games at launch, because otherwise Microsoft is going to have the most powerful system that's the same price, and it's just going to be easy in marketing to do all of that. But again, we need to see the games. If Sony has some ridiculous looking games from their first party studios who's very, very talented, at that point it really won't matter if they cost the same, because where do you go for God of War 2? Oh, I go to the PS5. And in our last bit of news, let's talk about that game that was classified and rated in Australia. You can see that here. That was rated on the 18th of March, so yesterday. And that is Deadly Premonition 2, A Blessing in Disguise. It's rated MA15+, probably surprising no one. And good news, that means it's probably coming out the first half of this year, I'm starting to think. When we see these games get rated, usually that means they're confirmed to be coming out, because it usually costs money to rate these things, obviously. And we kind of figure a Nintendo Direct is coming up. There is that rumor of one happening next week, and the indie presentation most recently falls in line with that. So Deadly Premonition 2 most likely is coming up with a date, which is good, because people are... or after tomorrow, we're not going to have another dated Nintendo game at all. And I don't know if that's ever happened, or at least a Nintendo exclusive necessarily. The Wii U date? I mean, do we really talk about the Wii U days? It's been a while, right? So most likely, yes, that Nintendo Direct is coming up, and this is probably one that's going to be featured there. I'm going to drop Deadly Premonition 2 in as a summer type game. Maybe June or July would make sense. We'll see how that goes down. But yes, be on the lookout for Nintendo Direct. We see Deadly Premonition 2 get rated here. We've seen several others as well. We've seen Xenoblade Definitive Edition kind of getting set up and ready to go. We'll keep an eye out for some things. And we'll finish up with the comment of the day, as you're seeing here. This one is from RedSpike226. I wonder if I'll even be able to pick up Doom Eternal or Animal Crossing in a store in Friday, being tomorrow. Well, my plan, I have one, because I figured if I do this right, I set it up so that I go out for the essentials, and oh, what? Animal Crossing and Doom's out here at Walmart too. Guess I'll get those too, right? While you're food shopping. That's the plan. Go out, food shopping, and pick up Doom and Animal Crossing at Walmart while I'm out. By the way, nice little tip here. Animal Crossing is going to be $10 less at Walmart, so that'll be $50. I'm crossing my fingers that Doom is as well, and $100 gets both of them. That'll be nice, but that's my plan anyway. GameStop's canceled any of their kind of midnight release plans that they were going to do tonight, which is probably a good idea. Most likely GameStop doesn't really need to be open right now, and based on some of the working conditions that I'm hearing about that we might do a video on, they should probably be closed, but that's my plan. Go to a Walmart or a Target, grab them while I'm doing some food shopping, make one big trip, and then head right back. And ladies and gentlemen, that's gonna do it here for Newswave today. If you enjoyed this video, hit that like button, it really helps out, guys. If not, hit that dislike. Leave comments down below about everything we talked about today, whether there's the PS5 news. What do you think about the system reveal? I mean, when you're watching it, if you didn't fall asleep, what did you think about what you were hearing there? Was there something that got you really excited, something you're interested in? Or at this point, we've heard a bunch of specs. Are you just ready for those games? Let me know about that down below. Or what about Deadly Premonition 2 getting a rating? Are you expecting now a direct to be happening soon? Considering after tomorrow, we won't have any other games dated for the Switch from Nintendo as an exclusive at all. Thanks guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.